All right, welcome back to What the Hermeneutic. I am Paul Koch. With me, as always, is my wife, Cindy Koch, who is our student of Biblical Hermeneutics. And once again, she will be leading us through a discussion of this important topic. And today we're just kind of taking the next step. We've been through a few already. Text, meaning. We're going to talk a bit about referent today, moving through... kind of following Voelz's book, Biblical Principles, Biblical Interpretation for Everybody. Is that how it is?
Everyone.
For everyone, yes. And that link is always down below. You can check that out if you'd like to buy your own copy of the book and follow along with us. But we're just happy that you're here to have these important discussions on hermeneutics. So like and subscribe, and let's get after it.
Spit out my Lord in every way. Yet I'm still welcome in the arms.
All right, so we had a conversation about finding meaning in the words themselves, I guess. Get more into that today, and we are talking about referent.
Yes, the referent. I think we like to stop with what does this word mean and not look into what is this word actually referring to. So I think both questions need to be asked. We started a couple weeks ago with what is the text itself that we're looking at, right? And then we're also, last week we talked about what does the word mean.
Okay.
And so this week we're going to talk about what it's referring to, because we can have words in Scripture that are the same word, but they might be talking about different things, referring to different
This
subjects.
definitely connects back up then with meaning, where we said meaning isn't, in that discussion, we said it's not simply etymology. It's not just saying this is what the word meant once, but it might mean something different here.
Right.
Or maybe broaden that further then, is this word, it's referent, what it's referring to can be different.
Exactly.
Am I getting ahead of
No, I mean,
okay.
I think all of this is good. So we have a couple examples maybe to make this a little bit clearer, and maybe you can think of some too, because I'm just going to say this was a really important question when I was just recently doing some translating with Dr. Robbie. We were doing Isaiah. I think I talked about it a couple times ago, where everything that we translated, it was very important, especially, in prophecy, to find what the referent was. Is the referent, just something that's happening right here in front of your face? Are we referring to, something in the past, something in the future? So there's a lot of questions to ask when we're finding.
Yeah. Well, and Isaiah is notorious with that, because you really struggle sometimes, like,
what?
Because he's talking about now or the future,
right.
or...
And I think in general prophecy, you're going to get that. Okay. That's just the nature of prophecy.
Sure.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we discover this. But so let's just get into some examples, because I think that's a little bit easier to talk about what we're doing here. So Matthew 27.
Right.
Dr. Voelz uses these examples in his book, The Principles of Biblical Interpretation for Everyone. So if you want a little bit more in-depth discussion, you can look at chapter 6 for this.
Okay.
Talking about the referent, go ahead and read Matthew 27, verse 47.
Okay, so this is the death of Jesus, his crucifixion, verse 47. And some of the bystanders hearing it, that's hearing him say, my God, why have you forsaken me? So some of the bystanders hearing it said, this man is calling Elijah. Okay,
so a question right away that we can ask is bystanders, that word.
Yeah.
So we discovered what it was in the Greek, and it can be translated in English as bystanders. And we know what bystanders means, right? Somebody standing close by this happening.
Okay.
That's the meaning of the word, what we talked about last time. But the question we're asking today is, what is that referring to?
Who are they?
Yeah. What people are bystanders? Are they just sort of people that are walking by? Are they the soldiers who, were at the foot of the cross?
Are they the Pharisees?
Right. So
yeah.
Trying to figure out or make conclusions about what the referent of the word bystanders is an important part of the discussion. Sometimes it's clear, and sometimes it's not clear. Okay. Actually, you just did that when you read the text right there. You said it, right? Or was that in the text?
What's that?
When you
hearing it is in the text, yeah, in the English translation. Right.
And it doesn't define what it is.
Right.
But you just automatically did.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah. Going back.
I went back, filled it in.
Right. And I think our brain automatically does that. Like we're already giving these words reference.
Yes.
And
you have to.
Yes.
Right. When you're reading, you have to
make sense of it.
Yes.
And so this is the task of hermeneutics. We're just taking one step back, realizing what we're already doing in our brains with the text, and just making sure that we're, doing it faithfully in the right way. And like I said, sometimes it's clear, like, oh, he just said this, now he's referring to it. Other times it's not clear. Sometimes we're like, what is this it? Who are these they?
Right, for
and
sure.
We have to make a good case for why we're going to translate it in this fashion and understand it and get meaning out of that word or group of words by that referent. So let's just do one more because I think it's helpful to see Matthew 27 still. Let's go to verse 54.
So verse 54, when the centurion and those who were with him keeping watch over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, truly this was the Son of God.
Okay, so saw the earthquake and what took place. In the text there, we don't have what it was that took place. And so we're kind of left with filling in the blanks again.
Okay. Yeah.
And so what is the what took place referring to? And I think this is where we can kind of get into why the other Gospels might be helpful. So in this Gospel, does it talk about the... It talks about the guys rising from the dead and walking around and the rocks like breaking.
The rocks split, the tombs were open, bodies of the saints who'd fallen asleep are raised, coming out of the tombs. Yeah.
So that's Matthew's gospel.
Right.
But in John's gospel, we get like the Spirit leaving.
Yes.
Right. And
so the Spirit, yeah.
So there might be more meanings to what happened than just what kind of we see in the text. Maybe the other accounts can actually give us some information about that. So what is the referent of that phrase or of that group of words? So those are just a couple examples of like how we're asking that question and how we're already doing hermeneutics without maybe even knowing what we're doing. I think let's do three other examples. One is a basic one, and we kind of discussed it a little bit, but whenever we come to a this or a he or a she or an it or something like that, we always have to ask those questions with personal pronouns, demonstrative pronouns. What are we referring to? And it's very simple, even in like the Greek or the Hebrew, when it's just like a conjugation of the word, like he said, you always have to ask your question, who said? Like who is saying this? If it doesn't explicitly give you a subject, you need to figure out what the referent of your verb is. Sometimes it doesn't really come across that that's a question in our English translations, because guess what the translators had to do?
They give you reference.
They had to make a choice about what the referent was going to be so that the text would make sense.
Yes.
And so a lot of times, well, this is why, your Bible comes with a pastor, as they say, who knows the original languages, and that's why these are very important, because sometimes the referent is very clear about what's going on and who's being talked about, and sometimes it is unclear, and it's unclear in the original languages, which means you might have several different choices for a referent.
Right, and so you should know that, and again, that's not bad.
No.
It's just saying
it's honest.
This is the text we have before us. Mm-hmm. In order to make sense, I have to supply a reference. Yes. Like what is this vocable mark on the page referring to? and in order to gain meaning out of it,
Yes.
right? And so you're doing that anyway, and so to be aware of it, and maybe even at times, again, I know I've talked about this before on this series, good commentaries, good ones, will often give you the options. Like they'll say, well, so and so says this, and they'll work through like, other options compared to the one that they're using,
right.
even, and say, this is a good option. Here's why I think it's wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
And here's what I think. But that you start to see the breadth sometimes of just this simple piece of to what is it referring,
right?
And
just to remember, this is all still talking about just the meaning of these words. So we're trying to figure out like what the story is actually, or the, parable or whatever, what it's just saying. We're not even to the next level, which we'll get there, where we're going to try to figure out like what this means outside of the words.
Okay, yeah.
We're just talking about to what does this word refer on the page to make sense of this sentence. That's it.
Okay.
Just two other notes then. Yeah. One would be parables, because this is non-literal language that we usually get in a parable, meaning that if we're talking about a seed, yes, we're talking about a seed and we're not talking about a seed at the same time. We see that when Jesus kind of decodes some of his parables, where he'll go on talking about plants and seeds and, dirt and stuff, but he's actually referring to, faith and God and the word. Yeah, so other things. And so we have to keep that in mind with non-literal language. And actually, I think we'll probably do a whole thing just on parables and non-literal and things like that. But to keep that in mind too, just because it says it's a seed on the page does not necessarily mean that the referent is a physical tiny thing that you put in the ground that grows a plant. Those are the questions we need to ask.
Right.
The other one I think that we talked about just recently was prophecy. And prophecy can mean, we see this word on the page. It could be referring to something happening right in front of the prophet, or something happening is going to happen in the future, or maybe that has happened in the past even.
Yeah.
Great example is, Isaiah and the young woman, or the virgin.
Virgin will give birth. It's given as a sign, and it's, it seems to be there's somebody that Isaiah is referring to right there. Right.
What is the meaning of this young woman?
But then you get Luke's gospel, and he's saying, Luke's gospel, right? And he's saying the fulfillment of this is the Christ child.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So just like I said, we're already doing this. This is hermeneutics.
Yeah.
But let's just kind of admit what we're doing and make sure that we can do it the most faithful way possible.
Yeah, so it's asking the proper questions so that we know how we're handling the text. And I think maybe even to build some, I don't want to say predictability in what you're doing, but at least like a reliable structure of what you're doing. So every time you're coming to the text, you're not just ground zero. It's like you've asked these questions, and better questions to ask, and so you're getting better and better at reading, which if you're a preacher, like most people watching this channel are, helps you be more faithful in that task.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we good there?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. We will move on from the reference without leaving it behind. But take a minute to like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet, and check out crafterpreaching.com. There's always essays there on preaching and all the other texts that are coming up. But this is our kind of special section on hermeneutics. Share your thoughts, any questions you have, and we'll try to get to those as well. And God bless your preaching.